That, to me, where the creative process is at its best. When you're free, when you're just doing what you do. Hi, I'm Jamie Lee Curtis, and this apparently is the timeline of my career.
I'm sorry, I was looking for someone.
So I was 19 years old. I was under contract at Universal as a contract player, which is an old system of developing talent, which is no longer in existence anymore. I was cast because I was paid already by Universal. Quincy is looking for someone, and he opens the drape of the dressing room, and I'm there, I believe, in a bra. You know, obviously that was going to bode for future bra work on my part. I think my lines were,
"You won't find who you're looking for in here, mister."
And then at the button of the scene is me leaving.
"You ought to be locked up."
And that was my first paid pretending to be somebody else gig.
Oh, look.
Look where?
Behind the bush.
I don't see anything.
The guy who drove by so fast, that one you yelled at.
Oh, subtle, isn't he?
Halloween.
Hey, creep.
I was young. I had done a TV series that I had been fired from and thought for sure my career, which was just brand new, was now going to be over. And had I not been fired from Operation Petticoat, I would not have been available to audition for Halloween. Operation Petticoat was canceled, I think, 2 weeks after its second season. And obviously Halloween has given me my entire creative life. So it was the methodology of the shooting. I think however many people are in this room right now shooting this, we had that many people on the entire crew. It was a small group of guerrilla filmmakers, 2 trucks and a Winnebago that had every department. We just drove around the city and made this movie. There was something incredibly freeing and fun being with really basically young people and everyone kind of working together to make this movie. There was nothing fancy about it on any level. I've certainly missed that and have tried to find that again in my later life. It's been hard to find. I was a young actress and there were 3 parts for a girl, obviously the smart aleck, the young virgin, and the cheerleader. I thought I would have been like a really good smart aleck, and I was a cheerleader. And yet John, I auditioned I think 3 or 4 times for Laurie. I remember getting it.
Oh, Louis.
I've been looking everywhere for you, baby. Listen, Louis, I'm hurting, baby. I just need a shot. Louis.
The only pivot I've ever done in my entire life was make a decision after I did the sequel to Halloween, which was called Halloween 2 at the time. I said I was not going to do any more horror films. From that, almost immediately, I was doing a television film that chronicled the very sad, tragic life and death of Dorothy Stratton. She was a Playboy playmate who was murdered by her ex-husband. And then almost immediately after that, I made a movie called Love Letters, and then from that, I auditioned for Trading Places. But really, the gift of that is John Landis. I had met John Landis, weirdly enough. He had done a documentary about horror film trailers from the 50s called Coming Soon, and he needed a narrator for that documentary short. Wonder who he called. That'd be me. And I shot for 3 or 4 days on the back lot at Universal, narrating the history of horror film trailers. I can tell you that when he suggested that I play the part in Trading Places, I guarantee you and know for sure was met with not only incredulity, but rage. And I know that John was like, no, this is who I want to have play this part. So I'm grateful and will always be incredibly grateful to him for having that, not only courage to say, no, this is who I want, but also giving me this incredible opportunity.
Okay.
Was it shrewd? Was it good tactics, or was it stupid?
Don't call me stupid.
Oh, right. To call you stupid would be an insult to stupid people. I've known sheep that could outwit you. I've worn dresses with higher IQs, but you think you're an intellectual, don't you, Abe?
In a weird way, things link up, and people's careers, if you look back at them, will link. If you think about, well, this director saw that movie and then they cast you in that. In the same way that John Landis obviously sort of started that. John Cleese had seen Trading Places and liked it, I guess. He wrote A Fish Called Wanda for me and Kevin Kline and Michael Palin and John. I remember I was home in Los Angeles and I had done, because I have done some weird shit, I did a Guinness Book of World Records TV show with David Frost that I hosted, where I went down the Amazon in a canoe while David Frost, in a limousine, in a Rolls Royce, went through Europe and Bavaria. The man who produced it was a man named Ian Gordon, and Ian Gordon was a friend of John Cleese. I got a call from Ian Gordon saying that John Cleese wanted to meet with me. Of course, at the time, my husband's movie, This Is Spinal Tap, had just been released, and I thought for sure he really wanted to meet Chris, because Chris is like really, really funny, and it was an amazing movie, and I just thought that John Cleese would really want to be meeting Chris Guest. But apparently he wanted to meet me. And so we met at a restaurant on Sunset Boulevard, and he honestly said, I've written this movie, we're gonna go make it, it will be wildly successful, you will have a great time, and we will all make some money. That had not happened to me prior to that, and I thought, okay, John Cleese, whatever, okay, let's get to London and make a movie. And I did. I brought my 6-month-old baby, my husband, and went to London, and everything that John said happened.
What would Plato do? Excuse me, do you think I could switch seats with you? We're like old college buddies, you know? Thanks. Wow. Wow. I'm really excited to meet you. You're a great writer.
Well, you're pretty good yourself. I've never known anyone to make a small Z correctly like that.
I must have shot A Fish Called Wanda in London, and I remember finishing that movie and coming home and saying, okay, I have to stay home. This is too hard on my marriage and my daughter, and it's just too much. I would never leave my home. I'm that girl. So I remember saying to my agents, like, I really want to stay home. And the next thing I know, I got sent this script. It was this thin. It was tiny and thin. It had like 27 pages. A woman named Wendy Kaut had written this romantic triangle TV show, which is what Anything But Love started out as. I read it and I put it down. I called my agent and said, okay, let's do it. We did the pilot. It did not sell. Then I took the job in New York called Blue Steel for Catherine Bigelow, which was great, but it was shot entirely almost at night on the streets of New York, and I had an 18-month-old daughter. And my husband and daughter came to New York, obviously. And I like rented a house and like was trying to be mom, but at the same time I was shooting nights. And John Ritter and Wendy Kaut came to me and said that ABC had decided to pick up Anything But Love with Richard Lewis, my love, and they're gonna change it and make it now just about the two of you, and it's not a love triangle, blah, 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 blah. We did 60 episodes total. Her name was Hannah Miller. They also made her the sort of underdog rather than the boss, which was the original pilot idea. And what I loved about it was I have never done a play. Those are shot in front of a live audience. All of a sudden, I became like the ham bone of all time. I couldn't wait for the audience to come. I loved the live experience. So for me, the greatest experience of that was the idea of rehearsing it like a play, and then Friday comes along and you put on the play. I loved it, and for some reason, I've just never found another job like that. It was my favorite job I've ever done.
Shelley, do you think I'm pretty?
Yes, Beta, I think you're very pretty. You've got these great, big, sparkling eyes, cutest little nose, an amazing mouth.
Boys at school don't think I am.
They'll come around.
Shelley DeVoto was the character, and she's coming for an audition at a funeral home to do the makeup on dead people. The costume designer had found a pink hot pants suit. It was perfect. Howard Zeef, who was the director, was like, no. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, no. I just thought it looked really cute. And he was like, it's too on the nose, it's too much the period. And what I learned from him is the only time you really know it's a period movie is when Macaulay Culkin and Anna Chlumsky are riding their bikes, and there on the wall in the alley is a political poster. And that's it. Howard Zieff was an advertising guy, and he understood that if you scream period in the period movie, it ruins it. That this was not a period movie, this was a movie about this young girl and her obsession with death. The fact that it took place in 1972, it was irrelevant. And now when I see period movies and you see how much period they're trying to throw at you, it really is jarring. The second thing is, as you probably all know, I'm a bit of a vulgarian. My favorite line from A Fish Called Wanda is,
"You're a true vulgarian, aren't you?" "You're the Bulgarian, you f***."
Clearly, the swear jar that is implemented on a movie with children is done for a purpose. So the last scene of the movie that Macaulay and Anna were in, we had helicopters and cranes and 15 cameras. The water was 3 feet deep. They had guys in scuba, and they had stuntmen, ambulances. I mean, it was insane. And I grabbed the 2 swear cans, and in front of the entire crew, I said, Macaulay, Anna, congratulations, you've wrapped the movie, go f*** yourselves. And I handed them each a can, and I think it had $500 in it, each. I can tell you that Jim Cameron saw A Fish Called Wanda, and the same thing happened. I was home one day in Los Angeles, and the phone rang, and it was Jim Cameron. It was like, hello, hi, Jamie, it's James Cameron. Hi, Jim. And he said, I've written a movie for you and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd like you to read it. Can I send somebody over with the script? But I can't leave the script. You have to read it while they wait. Okay, Jim Cameron. Sure. And I remember I called my agent after I had breakfast with Jim, and I was like, so I think Jim Cameron's going to call you, and apparently he's written this movie for Arnold Schwarzenegger and me, and I think this is going to happen. And my agent, who's very sweet, said, yeah, no, I know, Jamie. That's not going to happen. That's just not the way these things happen. I was like, okay. Well, that's what he said. And ultimately, it did happen. You know, the great thing about True Lies is that it was a character. Helen Tasker was just absolutely maybe the best thing I'll ever get to go do. At the center of this action-centric movie was a domestic love story. Everything happened organically because of the centered love story. Nothing was superfluous, nothing was added on to justify some trope of an action movie. Everything was organic to the characters. And the fact that she was not good at it was sort of perfect. There were a couple places in it where Helen's a little clumsy. She trips down the hall, she sort of drops the gun. And Arnold and I had rehearsed the tango months before. And then we needed a refresher course 2 days before the tango sequence, which is the end scene of the movie. My quad muscles, because I do a lot of lunging, were burned out by the end of the rehearsal. The next day I remember getting up and going like, oh, I can barely walk. Like they were done. And we had to do this over and over and over and over again. And you will see in the end of the tango, I can't hold myself up, and I actually slip. And I was so angry that he kept it in the movie because my ego wanted the tango to be really fabulous and ended on a high. But of course, what was so great about it was that it was completely Helen. That Helen, no matter what, is still gonna make a mistake. Even though she's Doris or whatever her fake name was, you know, she's never gonna be that.
Look at me! I know, we seem to be inside each other.
Old!
I beg your pardon.
Oh, I'm like the Crypt Keeper!
Okay, that's enough.
Freaky Friday was a train that was moving, and the actress that was going to do the movie pulled out of the movie. I was on a book tour, I write books for children, and I got a call from my agent saying, this movie is going at Disney, and they have asked if you will be in it. It was a Thursday. They sent me the script. I read it on the plane. I met the director on Saturday. I had my hair dyed red on Sunday, and I was shooting on Monday. So the beauty of that movie is that I just jumped into it with absolutely zero prep on any level. And it's a weird movie because you alternately are playing a 15-year-old and a 45-year-old. There are often days where I was both. Because I had no time, I had the complete freedom to just go, okay, you know, whatever. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. I remember the first day we shot at Pacific Palisades High School. And then the next scene we did was her on TV. And I just remember asking the grips if they could put some baby powder so that my feet would slide. And then I remember the director the next day coming to me and saying, you know, the editor is wondering if we need to bring you down. He was thinking it's a little too big. And I remember Mark Waters, who's a terrific guy, I remember saying to him, look, Mark, this is your movie, not mine. I only heard about it 6 days ago. This is what I'm naturally gonna do for you. Like, this makes sense to me. I have no problem at all being 15. I am 15. This is just what I'm gonna deliver for you. And it's your job to sort of tone it, but this is what I'm gonna do. It's the only way I'm gonna do it. If I'm thinking about this for one day, it's over, it'll be horrible. So either find somebody else and just let me go home, or I'm gonna do what I do. He was like, no. And you know what? It turned out to be this amazing experience for me creatively. It was the freest I've ever been. Between that and True Lies, I've never been freer. It's a feeling that I've tried to follow up with again and again. It was a lesson. I remember thinking, like, if I get into my head, this is just gonna stink. And it didn't stink. Really, really funny, really funny. And I improvised one line, make good choices, which, what can I say? When you're a teenager and you're walking away from your mother in a car and your mother screams out at you at high school, make good choices, I mean, come on. And I had a 15-year-old at home, so you can only imagine.
Make good choices!
I had done No More Horrors when I said I was doing No More Horrors, and did No More Horrors for a very, very long time, until one day I had lunch with John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, who co-wrote the movie with John Carpenter and produced it, became one of my best girlfriends. And I said to them, you know, guys, in a couple of years, we're gonna be coming up on 20 years. That's crazy, because we're all still in show-off business. We're still working. Let's make a 20-year movie. We all decided to do it, and then slowly, John ended up not doing it, Deborah ended up not doing it, but I ended up doing it, and that's what became H2O. I was not a producer, I should have been, because it was really my inception to say, let's revisit Laurie. I did want to talk about trauma, not to the level that we did in 2018, but I did want to bring up horror movies are about this crazy, horrible time in people's lives. And then the movie ends and everybody goes home and pays their heating bill. People forget, or I forget, like, what happened to these characters in the movie? Like, what happened to Laurie Strode after that horrible night in 1978? I am recovering as an alcoholic and a sort of dope fiend myself. And I figured maybe Laurie had a drug and alcohol problem. And so we sort of explored that in H2O. And it was a good movie. It was fine. It was good. I liked it. I was happy we did it. So I was in the next one, but very briefly. Then I thought, okay, I'm done. And then I've just been doing other work and having a really beautiful life and writing books for children. And then out of the blue, I got a call from Jake Gyllenhaal, who is a dear friend of mine and I've known since he was a little boy. He had just done the wonderful movie Stronger with David Gordon Green. Jake called me and said, David Gordon Green would like to talk to you about Halloween. And he said, well, I've written this thing, and and it's 40 years later. He started to pitch it. I said, no, don't pitch it. Just send it to me. I'll read it. He sent it. I read it. I called him. I said, okay. And that was the 2018 movie that you saw. The intention to make it was correct. It was to revisit what really happens to someone when that sort of level of trauma happens in their life. What does that do to a human being? How do you get through that? How do you continue to live? And really, what kind of story could we tell? Unbeknownst to me, certainly had no anticipation, it turned into this incredibly powerful moment in my professional life, in my personal life. I was turning 60. It all sort of happened at the same time. It really struck a chord. The movie was wildly successful. It really reminded me how lovely and how rare that kind of storytelling can be. We made a movie 40 years ago. I was 19 years old. And here I was playing the same character 40 years later in arguably a more successful film than any of the original Halloween movies, at the age of 59, coming up on 60. And then, of course, since then, David Gordon Green has agreed to do a trilogy. David and Danny McBride created this trilogy about Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. So Judy Greer and Andy Matichik came in to be my daughter and granddaughter. So it really turned out to be this amazing, unexpected, creative experience. Mr. Blanc, I know who you are. I read your profile in The New Yorker. I found it delightful. I just buried my 85-year-old father who committed suicide. Why are you here?
I'm here at the behest of a client.
I knew no one. I was at a business conference and my agents called and said, there's a script, Daniel Craig is doing it. At that point, I didn't even need to read it. I think I said, okay. And then, of course, I read it. It was delicious. And the part was fun. When you do movies nowadays, they have a word called attached. So if you get sent a script, you're reading it and they go, by the way, Daniel Craig is attached to do it. That does not mean he is confirmed to do it. That means that he has read it and said he likes it, but they're kind of fishing. They're using him as a bait to see who else they can get, and then maybe they'll take that group of fish and go out to the marketplace and maybe sell it and maybe not. Here was a movie where it was Daniel Craig is confirmed, Chris Evans confirmed, Toni Collette, Michael Shannon. I would have done the movie if it had just said Knives Out Michael Shannon. Ryan, I did not know his work. I hadn't seen Brick. I had seen Star Wars, loved it. Don't. Stop it. You. Don't be a hater. Just relax. Breathe. I would have done the movie just to literally stand in a room with Michael Shannon. He is so genius. Every single actor was confirmed. And that just was like insane. Because that just doesn't happen. And it's a murder mystery. And we were all going to go off to Boston and make this movie for 2 months. Fantastic. Fast, quick, really intense, and really funny. Spill it.
I have eliminated no suspects.
Because of the way that David Gordon Green makes movies and the way that Rian Johnson makes movies, I came home and wrote a screenplay, and I'm going to direct a screenplay next year because they showed me that it is not only the greatest collaborative medium, but it can be fun. It clicked back on my mojo completely about making movies. It just reawakened the creative spirit in me. And now I'm like creatively, daily having some very intense ideas of things to do.